Hi guys, just a quick look at the P51. It's more from a sort of previous ThinkPad owner's perspective, and just to give you a sort of better idea of what to expect. So firstly, I think the first thing we'll notice is, we'll talk about build quality and the sort of general keypad trackpad, is that, oh yes, that brilliant 3 button is finally back. That's absolutely brilliant. It's I really missed it through the sort of W540, 541 series, and it's just so much more precision when you click it. It's finally very happy it's back. And the trackpad itself, it seems to be large enough. You're not losing too much space, and I think many of the customers using this will be having a sort of external mouse, but when they're on the move, having those 3 buttons is just so much more reassuring. The keypad is now in one piece, so there's no longer the slide out mechanism, so that's quite a bit, feels a bit more reassuring. It's also easier to access the 2 RAM slots underneath. Okay, quickly, ports and also the build quality. Okay, so the left hand side seems to be quite port light. So there's a smart card and the express card, so that's the legacy ports that nobody use as frequently anymore. So 2 ports at the back, so HDMI and also the USB-C/Thunderbolt. So that's 2 display outs on the back. 2 USB ports, USB 2 ports here, and another USB 2 ports on the right. So there is this a 3rd display out here, the mini display port. So that's useful, going to be driving sort of 3 external display plus the internal one. So it's certainly got the sort of ports, standard ports you expect these days. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at the display. So we're sort of looking at the laptop from the side. So what we'll do is we'll quickly switch off the lighting. So if you can see, the sort of the viewing angle is actually delightful. So this is the Full HD IPS display. We'll switch the light quickly back. There is a more bright version of this in the sort of 4K option. That's really quite gorgeous, but it's quite a sort of quite an upgrade fee. So if you think that you might do color sensitive work or you might enjoy more content, the 4K is definitely the option. The 4K I don't think is a touchscreen. There is a touchscreen. It's a Full HD, but it's about 10% not as bright as the standard version of the particular laptop. But any of the option, it seems to be quite decent. It's just if you're quite particular about your coloring, maybe think about the 4K, because from day one it's going to have better color coverage. Okay, let's take a look at the performance level. Generally, the laptop it kind of has the Core i7 processor or Xeon, up to 64 gig of memory, 2 NVMe plus one of the 2.5-inch drives. So it's sort of pretty much the flagship level workstation you'd expect in 15.6 body, and also the sort of dedicated graphics is Quadro driving this 4 gig of memory on this particular unit. There's one upgrade option. It's slightly more powerful, and it's definitely useful to think about if you need to do more rendering on that one. Okay, so in terms of the system performance, it's I think like most ThinkPad, it seems to run maybe 10-20% slower when you're on the battery, but that's, I think, expected. I think most workstations, they do manage to sort of battery optimize for the battery and energy usage while on the battery. And in terms of the particular processor we have in this particular model, it's a sort of it's a high-end i7 with 8 meg of cache, so that's quite fast. In terms of the upgrade, there's a Xeon option, and in terms of downgrade, there's a 7700 HQ. Both of the i7 are more or less a sort of almost as fast in clock speed, but this one has a tiny bit more smart cache. The Xeon supports the 64 gig of ECC memory. That's useful. We'll come back to this. Okay, so in terms of other things to note, the RAM slots are more accessible generally under the keypad, but if we look at the base of it, you have a bigger cover. So it covers 3 storage devices, 2 disks, 2 RAM slots, etc. immediately. So but the cover, it could be more solid, I think, in my opinion. But that's not something you need to use every day. In terms of things to be aware of, I think when you use it at full load, you'll realize this area, and especially the side of it, to a lesser extent, feels really hot. I think most of the user will use this on a docking station, so it's not as much to worry about. But just be aware this feels very toasty when you have it on your lap. Okay, if we shortly open the system back up to the normal direction. Okay. And one of the nice thing is that the speaker, while it's not the loudest and it doesn't have a subwoofer, it's actually the right direction up, which is nice in comparison to some unnamed business laptop. The warranty tends to be, I think it tends to be 3 years. It depends on your region, but ThinkPad warranty is quite nice in the sense that it's mostly global these days. So that's very reassuring. And other things to think about, other competing models, the sort of ThinkPad's own P71 is a slightly larger version of this, has Pascal graphics support. So if you want to do more CAD rendering or more heavy graphic rendering, that might be something to look at. Also take a look at the heat, because that particular model seems to, the CPU fans sometimes seem to let the processor run at sort of higher speed. And it's not to say that, on this particular one, the processor sort of in medium load goes up to high sort of 80s / sort of mid 90s, so it does get quite toasty. It seems to have it under control, but the sort of slightly concerning thing is that this is more or less a new machine, 3-4 weeks old. So if it's already reaching that sort of temperature, you're sort of worried 3 years from now, if you don't have warranty or just outside warranty, what you might need to do. But it's not as much to worry about now. It's just simply because Intel has promised very high turbo boost, and if the sort of heat capacity is there, the system will be tempted to go there. Okay, so I think that roughly covers all the aspects. And the only other thing is the battery. You have two sizes. It might be worthwhile, if it's not too much, to just go for the bigger one from day one. It might take a bit longer to deplete, to empty, so it's just something else to look at. Okay, if there's any question, just give us a message and we'll be happy to assist. Thanks.